Shalom, shalom, shalom. This morning is the first day of the week, and I figured let's do a Bible study before I head out and do work on the farm. Uh, don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that jazz. Also, if you feel led, I would love it if you purchased one of our awesome shirts. I'm going to start trying to make one a week of various items. And also, eventually, I'm going to get some stuff from the farm up there, hopefully. Yeah, willing, right? Let's get into this. So, on X last night and this morning, I've been debating with Christians. So, the allowance for divorce is that the woman has erva, that she's unclean. But what this started with is the typical defense of drinking blood and not understanding that going back to the land is future prophecy. So that's what we're going to start with today. Let's get back to the land, right? That's what we want. We ended last time, the end of Deuteronomy 29, where it says that the hidden things belong to Yahweh our Elohim. But the things revealed belong to us and to our sons forever, that we may do all the words of this Torah. So it will be when all these things have come upon you, the blessing, then the curse, which I have set before you. You cause these things to return to your heart in all the nations where Yahweh your Elohim has banished you. And you return to Yahweh your Elohim and listen to his voice with all your heart and soul, according to all that I have commanded you today, you and your sons. Then Yahweh your Elohim will return you from captivity and return his compassion to you, and he will gather you again from all the prophet peoples where Yahweh your Elohim has scattered you. So this is like the main point, right? This is the whole point, that when we are scattered among the nations, we look at our life through Torah and we see that we are cursed, and we repent and we strive with Yahweh. We cry out to him that he returns us to the land, that he takes us out of this captivity. It is not primarily spiritual, it is a very physical thing. The promises of Yah are to his people and over his land. If those of you who are banished are at the ends of the earth, ends of the sky, From there, Yahweh your Elohim will gather you, and from there he will take you back. And Yahweh your Elohim will bring you into the land. See, into the land. This is the whole point. This is in Torah. This is what the prophets are explaining, like how this will happen. Yahweh your Elohim will bring you back into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he will prosper you and multiply you. And this is the whole point with, divorce and remarriage, right? Because the Christian idol says that it's better not to marry. It's better to make yourself a eunuch for the kingdom. Then how can you be multiplied? You're cursed. The whole New Testament is putting you under a curse. Moreover, Yahweh your Elohim will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed to love Yahweh your Elohim, not any other Elohim, Yahweh, with all your heart and all your soul. If you love Yahweh, which is Father, Abba, with all your heart and all your soul, even if the New Testament idol was truly the Son of God, as you've been taught to believe, why would you love the Son more than the Father? Why would you love him at all? I mean, think about that. In Malachi 1:6, it says, a son honors his father and a slave his master. Then if I am Father, where is my honor? Where is the honor to the Father when you're sitting there praising a man? Well, think about that. He was a man. Isaiah 2:22. Stop regarding man, whose breath of life was in his nostrils. He was a man, and yet you regard him, you esteem him, you exalt him, and you exalt his name. And Yahweh your Elohim will inflict all these curses on your enemies, on those who hate you, who persecuted you. You shall return and listen to the voice of Yahweh, and you shall do all his commandments, which I am commanding you today. Then Yahweh your Elohim will prosper you abundantly in all the work of your hand, in the offspring of your body, and in the offspring of your cattle, and the produce of your ground. For Yahweh will turn to rejoice over you for good, just as he rejoiced over your fathers. When you listen to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the Torah, when you return to Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and soul. You can't be double-minded. You can't serve two masters, as the idol says. You will love one and hate the other. You can't have two masters. You can't have three masters, which is what they have in there. It's double-minded. For this commandment which I am commanding you today is not too difficult for you, nor is it too far from you. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will go up to heaven for us, get it for us, and make us hear it, that we may do it. And this is what Shaul misquotes in Romans 10, verse 6. This is one of the first things he showed me after prayer and fasting. He says, for Moses writes about the righteousness which is by the Torah, the man who does these things shall live by them. Yes, that's Deuteronomy. Let me change the translation. Leviticus 18:5. So we should look at that in context. And, the Messianic interpretation of Paul is so off, because Paul is clearly saying you can't do it. So you shall keep my statutes and judgments, which if a man does, he shall live by them. And what does that mean? That obedience leads to life. And this is Paul's misinterpretation, that living by the Torah leads to death. I mean, he says this back in Romans 7:6, I believe. Yeah. I was alive once without the law, but when the commandment came, sin revived and I died. And the commandment, which was to bring life, I found to bring death. There's no way to twist Paul to be pro-Torah. So look at this. The man who does this shall live by them. Yes, if a man does them, he shall live by them. But the righteousness of faith in this way speaks in this way. Is that what Deuteronomy 30 is? The righteousness of faith? Do not say in your heart, who will ascend to heaven? And look what Paul adds. That is to bring Christ down from above. Deuteronomy 30:12 does not say that. And in fact, the context, if you go back, it's about listening to the voice of Yahweh, and that this commandment he's commanding us is not too difficult for you, nor is it too far away. Then it says that commandment is not in heaven, that you should say, who will go up to heaven for us and get it for us to make us hear it, so we may do it. Why did Paul leave all of that out? That's what the ascent into heaven is about. That we don't need to say who will go up to the heavens for us to get the commandments so we can hear them and do them. And then the next verse says, nor is it beyond the sea, that you should say, who will cross the sea for us, get it for us, and make us hear it, that we may do it. Whereas Paul says, who will descend into the abyss? How did it all of a sudden become an abyss being descent into when it says beyond the sea? And if you let's back this up, okay? LXX, Deuteronomy 30:12. Let's look at a translation. Some of you don't know the Greek very well. So verse 12 of Brenton's translation says, verse 13, neither is it beyond the sea, saying, who will go over to the other side of the sea for us to make us take it for us and make it audible to us, that we will do it. Okay, so the Masoretic said, nor is it beyond the sea, that we should say, who will cross the sea for us and get it for us to make us hear it, that we may do it. Oh, let's just look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, see if that has Deuteronomy 30. And it does. Then look what it says. Neither is it beyond the sea, that you should say, who will go over the sea for us and bring it out to us and proclaim it to us, that we may do it. Same thing. So where is Paul getting this idea of descending into the abyss, and that being about to bring Christ up from the dead, when the text does not say that? Remember, he says, Moses writes about this righteousness, but the righteousness of faith speaks in this way. And he's quoting from Torah to try to use Torah to back up his idolatry. But the Torah does not say this. And in fact, this whole context is about the idea that we do not need someone to come from heaven. We don't need someone who's crossing beyond the sea in order for us to hear it, so we may do it. But the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it. And Paul ends it with this. But what does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of faith which we preach. This just destroyed Paul for me. There was no way, like having my eyes opened 4 years ago now, and seeing this, I could say, well, Paul is just a mistranslation. And I had a guy that I was talking to that teaches that. You know, he has a great document, by the way, as to why Hebrews is not canonical. Why the book of Hebrews is not canonical. This is absolutely fabulous. And I went through this and compared it to Paul. And Paul fits every single thing he has on here, but he still refuses to let go of that idol. Letting go of Hebrews is a huge start. The question is, like when you let go of Paul, will you continue that journey to being Yah alone and Torah alone? See, this is a statement I really want all of you still in the New Testament to think about. He says, the author has already shown the principal errors in the New Testament translations of Paul concerning the words faith, law, and justify, and has corrected them, showing that Paul agrees with the Torah and the prophets. Well, I just proved that wrong in Romans 10. He doesn't. He misquotes it to justify faith, which, I mean, you can, let's take a look at what he's saying here, though, just to be fair. Faithfulness, okay. So if we say the word of faithfulness that we preach, that's still not in Torah. Torah is still not teaching that you should have faithfulness in Jesu. It's not. And look at what he concludes here with, that if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesu and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead. So he didn't raise himself from the dead. They did not believe he was God. You will be saved. And this is important too. You will be, not presently are. This whole Christianity is built on a house of cards on top of a house of cards. Like the New Testament is extremely, extremely problematic. But then you build your man-made doctrines on top of that contradict the New Testament. For with the heart one believes unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. Okay? That doesn't match what Deuteronomy 30 just said, which is all about our action, all about returning to Yahweh or Elohim, listening to his voice, and doing what he commands us. Then the curses will be lifted. Then we will be brought back into the land. See, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and calamity, and that I am commanding you today to love Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways, to keep his commandments. See, this just destroys the Gospel of John. It's not Yehoshua, the idol's commandments. It's Yahweh's, his statutes, his judgments, that you may live and multiply, and that Yahweh your Elohim may bless you in the land where you are entering to possess it. But if your heart turns away, you will not listen, but you are drawn away and worship other Elohim and serve them. I declare to you today, you shall surely perish. And guess what? The New Testament tells you this. It tells you that because you follow this man, you will perish because of your witness of him. You will be beheaded. You will be crucified. In fact, Peter even says that explicitly. For this you have been called, since Christ has also suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. According to the New Testament, obedience doesn't lead to life. But, this is completely inverted from Torah, from the prophets. If you turn back to Yah, if you obey, you will not perish. You will not be beheaded. You will not be burnt alive. You will not be crucified. You will not prolong your days if you do what? If you disobey, if your heart turns away from Yah, and you're worshiping other Elohim. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse, so that you choose life in order that you may live, you and your seed, by loving Yahweh your Elohim, by listening to his voice and holding fast to him. This is your life and the length of your days, that you may live in the land which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to give it to them. So Moses went and spoke these words to all Israel, and he said to them, I am 120 years old today. I am no longer able to come and go, and Yahweh has said to me, you shall not cross the Jordan. It is Yahweh, your Elohim, who will cross ahead of you. He will destroy these nations, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua is the one who will cross ahead of you, just as Yahweh has spoken. You see, one of the other things they try to say, and they get this from the book of Acts, is that he fulfilled Deuteronomy 18:15, right? He fulfilled it. Yeah. Okay. How? Yahweh, your Elohim, will raise up for you being the people he's speaking to you, not to future generations, because he doesn't say what he says in Deuteronomy 29, that is not just you that I'm making a covenant with, right? God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your brothers, who will listen. You shall listen to him. This is according to all that you asked of Yahweh Elohim, in Horeb on the day of assembly, saying, Let me not hear again the voice of Yahweh my Elohim. Let me not see this great fire anymore, or I will die. And Yahweh said to me, They have spoken well. I will raise up from a prophet among them, brothers, like you. I will put my words in his mouth. And this is why, if you took out the New Testament, you should not find anything that contradicts, right? If you believe yet your Yeshua is truly the Messiah, you can cut out all of the New Testament, and everything he said will have already have been said, because he's saying the words of Yahweh. And he shall speak to them all that I command. And it will be whoever will not listen to his words when he speaks in my name, see, not in his own name, in Yahweh's name, I myself will require it of him. And this is huge. This is huge if you believe this. He's not speaking in his own name. His own name would not be exalted. He would not be worshipped. Joshua of Nun is the one that was being spoken about. The one that helped replace Moses, led them into the land. And Yahweh will do to them just as he did to Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites, into their land when he destroyed them. And Yahweh will give them over before you, and you shall do to them according to all the commandments which I have commanded you. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or be in dread of them. For Yahweh your Elohim is the one who goes with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. And then Moses called to Joshua and said to him in sight of all Israel, Be strong and courageous. For you shall go with this people into the land, which Yahweh has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall give it to them as an inheritance. You see, the prophet like Moses does what? He leads them to the land, to restore it, to give it to them as inheritance. The New Testament idol doesn't do this. He doesn't lead anyone into the land. And even, I've seen someone say, he tried to focus on just the words of Jesus, right? What's that phrase? Because in the New Testament he says, Matthew 10:6, when he's sending the 70 out, rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. In Matthew 15:24, he answered, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. There's Jesus' words only. They focus on this so much. But if this was true, he's still a false prophet. Where are the lost sheep of the house of Israel? They're still scattered. They were not returned to the land, as Jerusalem, after he came to restore the land, was destroyed. Reason number 1160, he's not the Messiah. And Yahweh is the one who goes ahead of you. He will not be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. So Moses wrote this Torah and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who carried the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, and to all the elders of Israel. And then Moses commanded them, saying, At the end of every 7 years, at the time of the year of remission of debts, at the feast of booths, when all Israel comes to appear before Yahweh Elohim, at the place which he will choose, you shall read this Torah in front of all Israel in the Herim. And this is another one of those statements pointing to the idea of different Torahs being talked about within Torah itself. This, obviously, they wouldn't have sat and listened to Genesis to Deuteronomy. Because reading all of those, as we've seen, like me reading this, reading one chapter, reading 3 chapters last time took an hour, and it's probably going to take about an hour this time for about 3 or 4 chapters. There's just no way that they sat and listened to every single instruction being read to them from Genesis 1 to Deuteronomy 34. So clearly when they're reading this Torah, He's talking about, again, the blessings and the curses. That at the Feast of Booths, at the end of every 7 years, he would read this Torah. Meaning what? The whole of Torah? No. I don't believe that's what he's talking about. Assemble the people, the men and the women and little ones, the sojourner who is within your gates. Oh, look at that. The sojourner who is within your gates. Okay. Talmudists, why do you say that Goy, Gentiles, cannot read Torah? Yeah, exactly, Bobby. And there's no time to really take it in, to learn anything doing that. You're just reading it and fast forward. No, there's no time to stop and for questions. Yeah, I'm sure there's no way it would take less than 24 hours. I think each book, if you read them at a decent pace and don't stop for questions, takes about 3 to 4 hours to read. And that's reading it at a pretty good pace. And if you do that, you're talking about 4 times 5. That's 20 hours. Their children who have not known will hear and learn to fear Yahweh your Elohim all the days you live on the land, which you are about to cross the Jordan to possess. Yahweh has Moses write a song. And this is the song of Moses that we should be singing. Because this is what we're looking for. The redemption of Yah from this land, this cursed land that we're in because of our parents' disobedience. Then Yahweh said to Moses, behold, the time for you to die is near. Call Yehoshua, son of Nun, and present yourselves at the tent of meeting, and I may commission him. So when did Yahweh commission Yeshua of the New Testament? And you say, well, it happened before he was born, when he was born a virgin. Okay, let's pretend that the virgin birth wasn't taken out of context, which it is, because Isaiah 8 clearly shows how the virgin birth was about his own son, and that after the birth of the son, when the son was still a child, the 2 kings that were harassing King Ahaz were deposed of. And then they say, Emmanuel is with us. I mean, look at Isaiah 8. It literally says, word for word, what Isaiah 7:10 to 16 says. And then Yahweh said to me, take for yourself a large tablet, write on it ordinary letters concerning Mahar Shahal Hashbaz, and I will take it to myself faithful witness for the testimony. Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Jerbekiah. Then I drew near to the prophetess, and she conceived and bore a son. And then Yahweh said to me, call his name Mahar Shahal Hashbaz, for before the boy knows how to cry out, my father or my mother. See, this is exactly what the context of Isaiah 7:14 says. I mean, go back and look at it. It's Isaiah 7:15. For he will eat curds and honey, in order that he will know to refuse evil and choose good. For before the boy will know to refuse evil and choose good. See, it's talking about a specific time when this boy that is born is still very young. The land whose 2 kings you dread will be forsaken. And I'll go back to Isaiah 8. For before the boy knows how to cry out, my father or my mother, the wealth of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria will be carried away before the king of Assyria. And again Yahweh spoke to me further, saying, inasmuch as these people have rejected the gently flowing waters of Shiloah, and rejoice in Rezin and the sons of Remaliah, now therefore behold, the Lord is about to bring on them the mighty and abundant in waters of the river, the king of Assyria over all its glory, and it will rise up over all its channels and go over all its banks. Then it will sweep into Judah, and it will overflow and pass through. It will even reach to the neck. And then spread of its wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. You see, God is with us. That's the prophecy. It's fulfilled in Isaiah 8. So we know the virgin birth is a scam as well. So then we get to the problem, okay, well, when did his prophet say this man would be anointed? Because, at the end of Isaiah 44, it says, what? It is I who says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and all my good pleasure he will complete. and saying of Jerusalem, she will be built, and of the temple your foundation will be laid. And in Isaiah 45, verse 1, thus says Jehovah to Cyrus, his anointed. What's anointed in Hebrew? Anointed in Hebrew is Mashiach, or Messiah. That Cyrus is his Messiah, whom I have taken hold of by his right hand, to subdue nations before him, to loose the loins of kings, to open doors before him so the gates will not be shut. So when do any of the prophets, we've already proven Isaiah 7:14 wasn't about him. When do any of the prophets say Yeshua, son of Joseph, will be his anointed, will be his shepherd to return the lost sheep of the house of Israel, which he didn't do? You won't find it anywhere. Nowhere. It's invented prophecy. And what the New Testament writers did, as we see in Isaiah 7, is they took passages completely out of context and tried to make it about the first century. So Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves at the tent of meeting, and Jehovah appeared in the tent in a pillar of a cloud, and the pillar of the cloud stood at the doorway of the tent. And Jehovah said to Moses, behold, you are about to lie down with your fathers, and this people will rise and play the harlot with foreign gods of the land, into the midst of which they are going, and they will forsake me and break my covenant which I have cut with them. Then my anger will be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them and hide my face from them. See, this is where we're at. Because they pursued other Elohim, including this false B'nai Elohim, son of God, which is Israel, not the idol. They pursued him, they exalt him, that Yah says he's forsaken those of us that were children. He's forsaken the land, he's hidden his face from us. And this is something you see repeated in the warning of 1 Samuel 8. When the people say to Samuel, but all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah, and they said, behold, you have grown old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king for us to judge us like all the nations. But the thing was evil in the sight of Samuel, when they said, give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed to Jehovah. And then Jehovah said to Samuel, listen to the voice of the people in regard to all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. This is where you're at. You've accepted the lies of the New Testament. Yah has rejected you because you rejected him. Like all the deeds which they have done since the day that I brought up from Egypt, even to this day, in that they have forsaken me and served other Elohim, so they are doing to you also. So now listen to their voice. However, you shall solemnly testify to them. Tell them of the custom of the king who will reign over them. So Samuel spoke all the words of Jehovah to the people who asked of him a king. And he said, this will be the custom of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself in his chariots and among his horsemen, and they will run before his chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and of fifties, and some to do his plowing, and to reap his harvest, and to make his weapons of war, and equipments for his chariots. He will also take your daughters for perfumers and cooks and bakers. And I find this fascinating, as one of the supposed fulfillments is, this woman in the New Testament pouring perfume on his feet. But it's saying that, this is a curse, that he took this daughter as a perfumer because they rejected Jehovah. He will take the best of your fields and your vineyards. And you see this in the parable of the vineyard, right? That he's coming to take the vineyard from the son, Israel, right? And it's saying this is a curse. Your olive groves, and give them to his servants. He will take a tenth of your seed and of your vineyards and give it to his officers and their servants. The parable of the talents. He's taking the man who didn't invest the talent, which is a sin, and he says, you go and put it in a bank. It'd be better if you have interest on it. Well, Torah doesn't allow you to collect interest on a debt. Torah says that you should save it. I mean, if he had 1 talent, what would you expect him to do? He punishes him for not giving it to him. And he takes it from him and gives it to the other servants. These are all signs of being cursed. You also take your male slaves and your female slaves and your best young men and your donkeys and use them for his work. Go and fetch me a donkey so I can use it for my work. A donkey that does not belong to me. Yeah, isn't that funny? I mean, Yeshua is the ultimate colonist. He really is. And this is how Christianity propagated itself. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. Look at, you will become his slaves. Look at, oh, Father, Matthew 13, right? Nope, I was wrong. Matthew 11. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. A yoke is a sign of slavery. He's saying that you become my slave and learn from me. Then you will cry out in that day because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves. And this is what you do. You choose this man to be your king. You exalt him as God. And what does it say? Yehovah will not answer you in that day. Nevertheless, the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel, and they said, no, but there shall be a king over us, that we may also be like all the nations, that our king may judge us and go out and fight our battles for us. So Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he repeated them in the hearing of Yehovah. And then Yehovah said, listen to their voice and appoint them a king. So Samuel said to the men of Israel, go every man to his city. Why would Yehovah allow you not to choose your own delusion? If you choose your delusion, he's not going to say, well, I'm going to take away your free will and not allow you to do that. No, what he's going to do is not listen to you when you cry out for deliverance, when you realize you're a slave. Yes, exactly. Exactly, Bobby. I knew you were a hard man who gathers from where he hasn't sown. This guy is an evil colonist. He's taking what he doesn't belong to him. And look at, I will forsake them and hide my face from them. That's what Samuel is saying, because they went after other Elohim. They chose a king that is not Yehovah. And they will be consumed, and many evils and troubles will find them. So that they will say in that day, is it not because our God is not among us that these evils have found us? But I will surely hide my face in that day because of all the evil which they do, for they turn to other Elohim. So now write this song for yourselves and teach it to the sons of Israel. Put it in their mouths, so that this song may be a witness for me against the sons of Israel. For when I bring them into the land flowing with milk and honey, which I swore to their fathers, and they have eaten and are satisfied and become fat, then they will turn to other Elohim, serve them, and spurn me, and break my covenant. Then it will be, when many evils and troubles have found them, that this son will answer them as a witness, for it shall not be forgotten from the mouths of their seed. For I know their intent which they are developing today, before I have brought them into the land which I swore. So Moses wrote this song the same day and taught it to the sons of Israel. Joshua commissioned in Deuteronomy 31:23. Then he commissioned Yehoshua son of Nun and said, be strong and courageous, for you shall bring the sons of Israel into the land, which I swore to them, and I will be with you. And it happened when Moses finished writing the words of this law in the book until they were complete, that Moses commanded the Levites who carried the ark of the covenant, saying, take this book of the Torah, place it beside the ark of the covenant of Yehovah Elohim, that it may be there as a witness against you. And, this is like one of the verses I've seen Marcionites use, that the Torah is a witness against you. No, again, you're misunderstanding the context of the word Torah here. He's talking about the curses. that these curses are there because you go against Yah and against his Torah. That this is the witness against you, the curses. And when the curses witness against you, you're supposed to say, Yah, I want to humble myself. I don't want to be against your will. For I know your rebellion and your stiff neck. Behold, while I am still alive with you today, you have been rebellious against Yahweh. How much more than after my death? Assemble to me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their hearing, and call the heavens and the earth to witness against them. For I know that after my death you will act corruptly, and turn away from the way which I have commanded you, and an evil will befall you in the last days. And again, this prophetic call to the last days. For you will do that which is evil in the sight of Yahweh, provoking him to anger with the work of your hands. The son of Moses. Then Moses spoke in the hearing of all the assembly of Israel the words of this song until they were complete. Give ear, O heavens, and let me speak, and let the earth hear the words of my mouth. Let what I have learned drop as the rain. My speech distills as the dew, as the droplets on the fresh grass, and as the showers on the herb. For I proclaim the name of Yahweh. I ascribe greatness to our Elohim. The rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are just, a God of faithfulness, and without injustice, righteous and upright is he. See, Yahweh is the name you proclaim, and he is the rock. And it's so interesting, you believe the idol is the rock. You believe the idol's name should be exalted. When, have you really read Torah? Yahweh is the name we proclaim. He is my rock. He is my salvation. He is my Elohim. He is my Redeemer. They have acted corruptly toward him. They are not his children because of their defect, but are a perverse and crooked generation. Do thus repay Yahweh, or people who are wickedly foolish and without wisdom. Is not he your father who has brought you? He has made you and established you. Remember the ancient days. Consider the years from generation to generation. Ask your father, and he will declare it to you. Your elders, and they will speak it to you. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of man, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the numbers of the sons of Israel. For Yahweh's portion is his people. Jacob is the allotment of his inheritance. And this is why the New Testament is trying to steal Jacob's promise. Why does it change Israel in Hosea 11:1? Let's look it up. Hosea 11:1. When Israel was a youth, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. To Jesu in Matthew 2:15. And he remained there until the death of Herod, in order that what was spoken by the Lord through the prophet would be fulfilled. Out of Egypt I called my son. Okay. Why did he change Israel to Jesu? To take the inheritance. But even worse, again, context. Hosea 11 is not prophecy. This is a lamentation of his beloved son. A lamentation. And look at the context. That out of Egypt I called my son, and the more they called them, the more they went from them. They kept sacrificing to the Baals, burning incense to graven images. This is a lamentation that even though Israel was saved by the hand of Yah, a mighty hand, out of Egypt, they kept turning to idols. This is what the context says of out of Egypt I called my son, which means that if you apply that to your New Testament idol, he is an idolater that keeps burning incense to graven images. He found him in a desert land, a howling waste of wilderness. He encircled him. He cared for him. He guarded him as the pupil of his eye. Like an eagle that stirs up its nest, that hovers over its young, he spread his wings and caught them. He carried them on his pinions. Yahweh alone guided him. There was no foreign God with him. This is something you see Isaiah repeat over and over again in the servant song, Isaiah 40 to 61. Yahweh alone, no other, guided him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth. He ate the produce of the field. He made him suck honey from the rock and oil from the flinty rock. Curds of cows, the milk of the flock, with fat of lambs, the rams, the breed of Bashan, and goats, with the finest of the wheat, and of the blood of grapes you drink wine. And I've seen some of them use this to justify theophagic communion. The blood of the grapes, right? No, it's just an allegorical speech. It's a song. This is not saying you're actually drinking blood. It's not justifying theophagic communion. That would be doing what? Calling what is evil good. But Yeshurun grew fat and kicked. You grew fat, thick, and sleek. Then he abandoned Elohim who made him, and he treated the rock of his salvation with wicked foolishness. They made him jealous with strange Elohim. With abominations they provoked him to anger. They sacrificed to demons who were not Elohim, to Elohim whom they did not know, new Elohim who came lately. And remember what I said? If the New Testament is true, you can cut it out. Otherwise, it is a new Elohim. The fathers did not know this Elohim. You neglected the rock who begot you, which is Yahweh, which you've already shown. I forgot Elohim who brought you forth. And Yahweh saw this and spurned them because of the provocation of his sons and daughters. Then he said, I will hide my face from them. And again, we see this repeated over and over again. Because you turned to the New Testament idol, Yahweh hid his face from you. This is why you can read the whole Bible and not see the truth. He's hiding from you. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a perverse generation, sons in whom there is no faithfulness. They have made me jealous with what is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their idols. So I will make them jealous with those who are not a people, and I will provoke them to anger with wickedly foolish nation. What's it talking about? It's talking about Rome and the continuation of that with Christianity. That, this is allowed by Yah. That this wickedly foolish nation has received blessings in the past. But that's about to change. It's about to change severely. For a fire is kindled in my anger, and it burns to the lowest parts of Sheol. And it consumes the earth with its produce, and it sets on fire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap calamities on them. I will exhaust my arrows on them. They will be wasted by famine, consumed by plague, and bitter destruction, and the teeth of beasts I will send upon them, with the venom of crawling things of the dust. Outside the sword will bereave, and inside terror, both choice man and virgin, the nursing baby with the man of gray hair. I would have said, I will cut them into pieces. I will cause the memory of them to cease from men. Had I not feared the provocation by the enemy, lest their adversaries misjudge, lest they say, our hand is triumphant, and Yahweh has not done all this. For they are a nation where counsel perishes, and there is no discernment in them. Would that they be wise, that they had insight into this, that they would understand their future. How could one pursue 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock has sold them, and Yahweh had handed them over? Indeed, their rock is not like our rock. Even our enemies themselves judge this. For their vine is from the vine of Sodom. He is the vine, he says himself. He is of Sodom. From the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of poison, their clusters bitter. Their wine is the venom of serpents. This is the verse you should be going to for your theophagic communion. Your Nahash giving you wine, which is venom, and the deadly poison of cobras. Is it not laid up in store with me, sealed up in my treasuries? Vengeance is mine, and retribution in due time. Their foot will stumble, for the day of their disaster is near, and the impending things are hastening upon them. For Yahweh will render justice to his people, will have compassion on his slaves, when he sees that their strength is gone, and there is none remaining, bond or free. He will say, where are their Elohim, the rock in which they sought refuge? Who ate the fat of their sacrifices, and drank the wine of their drink offering? Look at that. There it is again. Your theophagic communion. And let them rise up and help you. Let them be your hiding place. See, you're seeking refuge in this man that calls himself the rock. You're drinking his theophagic communion, drinking the wine that he says is his blood. And where is he? Why isn't he risen up? Why hasn't he saved you? You can probably, oh, I am saved. No, the New Testament doesn't teach that. We went over that at the beginning of this video. It doesn't teach you are saved right now. So are you going to do what Paul did in 1 Corinthians 9? But I discipline, which is actually the word bruise, my body and make it my slave, so that after I preach to others, I will not myself be disqualified, meaning that he won't be saved. Why is he saying this? Well, it's interesting, really interesting. In 1 Kings 18, we see Elijah do this. So Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose one ox for yourselves and prepare it first, for you are many, and call on the name of your Elohim, but place no fire under it. Then they took the ox which was given them, and they prepared it, and called on the name of the Lord, which is what Baal means. I mean, you can look at it in your interlinear. They called on the name of the Lord, Baal, which means what? Baal equals Lord. The supreme male divinity of the Phoenicians or Canaanites. This is who you're worshiping. The Lord, Baal. But it gets even more interesting. O Baal, answer us. But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they limped about the altar which they had made. But it happened at noon that Elijah mocked them, and called out with a loud voice, for if he is a god, either is he occupied, or is he relieving himself, or is he on a journey, or perhaps he's asleep and needs to be awakened. Now that I found really interesting. Remember what happened on the boat? When their idol is what? Matthew 8:25. Jesus himself was sleeping. Yah does not sleep. And what do? They don't cry out to Yah. They say, save us, Baal. We are perishing, while their Lord was sleeping. So they cried out with a loud voice, gashed themselves, according to their custom, with swords and lances, until the blood gushed out on them. What's what we just read from 1 Corinthians 9. But we also see it in the book of Hebrews. I believe in chapter 13. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it's chapter 12. Yeah. So here he quotes the book of Proverbs to justify what? You have not resisted to the point of shedding blood in your striving against sin. Why does that sound so much like what the prophets of Baal were doing? That they were piercing themselves with swords and lances until blood gushed out on them. And then they drink their wine, calling it his blood, and wondering, where are you, O Baal? Why will you not save us? See now that I am he, and there is no God besides me. Again, no Elohim besides Yah. No Elohim besides Yah. Not a B'nai Elohim, not a Holy Spirit. There is no other Elohim besides Yah. It is I who put to death and give life. I have wounded, and it is I who heal. And there is no one who can deliver from my hand. Indeed, I lift up my hand to heaven, and I say, as I live forever. Well, wait a minute. I mean, he doesn't die? He lives forever? Huh. If I sharpen my flashing sword, and my hand takes hold on judgment, I will render vengeance on my adversaries, and I will repay those who hate me. For I will make my arrows drunk with blood. See, this is another fascinating thing. The drinking of blood is what? It's something that will happen to the enemies of Yah. And you see this repeated in Ezekiel, and I've actually seen Christians and Messianics use this to defend theophagic communion. Ezekiel 39, verse 17. Now as for you, Son of man, thus says the Lord Yahweh, say to every kind of bird and to every beast of the field, gather and come assemble from every side to my sacrifice, which I am going to sacrifice for you, as a great sacrifice in the mountains of Israel, that you may eat the flesh and drink the blood. And I've seen them like, see, there's my theophagic communion that's in John 6. Eat my flesh and drink my blood. Eat my flesh and drink my blood. Who is eating the flesh? Who is drinking the blood? And whose blood and whose flesh is being consumed? Number one, the one consuming it is unclean animals. Every kind of bird is what? Every kind of beast of the field. Every unclean beast of the field. You will eat the flesh of the mighty men, drink the blood of the princes of the earth, as though they were rams, lambs, goats, and bulls, all of them fatlings of Bashan. They call him what? The Lamb of God. And it's telling you really carefully here, if you have eyes open, you will eat the fat and until you are satisfied, and drink the blood until you are drunk. For my sacrifice, which I sacrificed for you, and you will be satisfied at my table with horses and charioteers, with mighty men, all the men of war, declares the Lord Yahweh. And I will put my glory among the nations, and all the nations will see my judgment, which I executed in my hand, which I have placed on them. And the house of Israel will know that I am Yahweh their Elohim from that day onward. It's the adversaries of Yah that are going to be put to death, and their flesh and blood consumed like they were clean animals by unclean animals. The unclean beasts of the field will destroy these mighty men, the ones that have exalted themselves. That is the sacrifice on the mountain of Israel, that the wicked kings will be sacrificed, their flesh and blood consumed, but not by Israel, by beasts of the field. My sword will devour flesh, with the blood of the slain and the captives from the long-haired leaders of the enemies. O nations, cause his people to shout for joy, for he will avenge the blood of his slaves. He will render vengeance on his adversaries, and he will atone for his land and his people. Then Moses came and spoke all the words of this song in the hearing of the people, he and Joshua the son of Nun. Then Moses finished speaking all these words to all Israel, and he said to them, place in your heart all the words with which I am warning you today, which you shall command your sons to be careful to do, even all the words of this law. For it is not an idle word for you, indeed it is your life. And by this word you will prolong your days in your land, which you are about to cross the Jordan to possess, which contradicts what we just read earlier, right? You know, the testimony that set aside the ark to be a testimony against them. Well, that testimony is the curses, because the Torah also leads to life. And let's go back to Deuteronomy 30. And we're going to come back to this on the next video, start at verse 48 of 32. So let's go back, Deuteronomy 30, and it says, see, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and calamity. The Torah is either the tree of life, if you choose to obey it, or it's the tree of knowledge of good and evil, like Paul says, if you choose to ignore it, to disobey it, to serve other Elohim. When you choose those things, you're eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, even if you read Torah, because you have chosen to ignore the curses and say, you are not cursed, even though you walk in the bitterness of your own heart. Then the words of Torah will lead to your death. Not just here, but in the next life. It will bring calamity. You will be cursed. And yes, Yah brings evil. He is the author of good and evil. Anyway, that's something you see Isaiah repeat. Isaiah 45:7. The one forming light and creating darkness. The one producing shalom and creating evil, calamity, which is ra in Hebrew. I am Yehovah who does all these things. He's the one that makes evil. Why does evil happen? Because Yah brings it on a wicked nation and the people in that nation to humble them, that they turn back to him. This is the whole reason of evil. This is the whole reason you see demons. It's because you are cursed. So if you're like casting out demons repeatedly, why don't you stop and ask, why is this happening still? Why do I have to continually bind Satan? It's because you're cursed. You're cursed. I mean, if you bind him once, why would you ever have to bind him again? Hallelujah for that revelation. I hope that all of you have a good week and bring shalom in your hearts that you are following the one true Elohim. And we are striving to call out to him to deliver us from this wicked land. Hallelujah.